Hello. Welcome to another episode of Ozzy's demo or intro coding. Okay. This is episode 7 of the tunnel intro coding by Ozzy, who is my guest. Um, uh, Hello, Ozzy.
Hello,
Hello.
sorry, I was struggling to power off my monitor because it's hard with all my wires. But yeah, and thank you again for having me after
Okay.
all this time. And you are not dead. But you are not bored to hear my stuff.
As always, we go to the um, uh, usual ritual, let's say that. Um, but before that, actually, I just remembered I need to show this. Now, as always, now it is my ritual to show the hardware as it is, and I can switch between any machine that I want uh, as they are. Um, so, yeah, I've been working quite hard to get this set up on, but it's all Commodore, basically, machines, different machines, which I can, let's say, which I can, uh, use on my streams. Let's say that. Um, uh, let's go to the usual ritual. So browser only. So guys, all I ask, as always, please like, subscribe to my YouTube channel. Um, uh, it's the only way I know of how to get what we do here out there. Yeah. And under each video, there might be, when you click on more, there might be links to code related to that video, to that stream. All the code will be on Mega, so you can download it from there, as you can see on my screen. As you know, also on Facebook, I have the Facebook page, which is my blog, but also I have the Phase 101 Facebook group and Commodore Dev Facebook group, um, which they are all Phase 101, and they are all maintained by me. So if you want to follow me there, you're more than welcome. You can also send me messages on Facebook, but I do take my time. So as always, I ask you to send me messages on Discord, uh, because that is when I reply quickly, unless I'm on a stream right now and I will not be able to reply. Um, if you don't like Facebook or Discord, you can always join the Telegram group where you can send me messages there, and that I also reply um, quickly, let's say that. So, besides Telegram, if you want to go that extra mile and support me, then I have Coffee and Patreon, which are identical. There is more, but this is what's available right now, which is active. It's 275 videos related to game development or development. I don't want to say game development, but development, coding for the Amiga or Commodore 64. Um, uh, Also, by the end of next month. So, also, as I was saying, till the end of March, we have our game jam, which is Retro Tepper. If you want to participate, please do. You can write in basic assembly, whatever you like. So, while we are at it, I'm going to switch to the real hardware. And I think I can pass to Ozzy. So, Ozzy, you're getting the focus and you can start talking.
I can. Do you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Good, good. So what should I say? The usual sentence that I usually say when I start. This week I didn't do literally anything. And this is because I'm breaking up with my wife, and the cause is that I bought another Amiga. That's the problem. Uh, and this is why I need retrolay because I don't know if this Amiga needs to be recapped or not. So probably yes. So he must be up to the
So
task.
you said about the Amiga 1000. Today, my Amiga 1000 came. Okay, this is my Amiga 1000. Well, one of two. Um, uh, it's only the motherboard and the PSU, but it arrived today, and I was working, so I didn't have time to open it. But I will hope that eventually I will be showing things from the Amiga 1000 too, or doing things that Ozzy does on the Amiga 1000 too.
Yeah, I hope also to test my stuff on a real Amiga 1000 because yeah. But first, I need retro layered, so this is mandatory at least.
Yeah,
So okay, so it's my time, I guess. I
yeah.
should start saying something, and I don't know where to start. I yeah, I will. I already said that I did nothing, so I will just because these are not lessons. Are just it's a let's say a report of what I did in the last week because I'm not a teacher. I don't think I'm able to teach something at someone, and I don't have the knowledge to teach. But I like to share what I usually do on the Amiga. So this is why I'm here. And so my goal for the last 2 weeks was trying to shrink even more my executable on the tunnel. So the goal was keeping the tunnel, the effect the same, but at the same time, I wanted to shrink the executable. And this is because I had this idea of putting a spaceship on navigating through this tunnel. That was the idea. And so you can show the last changes, even if there are no changes except this sprite
Yeah.
flying around the screen. And I will talk a little bit about how I was able to fit this extra information, extra data inside the 4K. So I'm trying to squeeze even more the 4K executable. And right now I'm really feeling that I'm scratching the bottom of what I can do. Because really, this time, every time I insert some new routine or even two instructions, I have to be really careful because they are taking a lot of space. I'm near to hitting the top, the maximum allowed bytes. So
So
you
yeah,
can start
yeah.
your.
I can show it. I can show the intro.
I don't know if the music will
So first
start,
of
but
all, it is running on this machine. You can see the LED uh, up. So it is running on this on the A600, and this is what Ozzy has done.
this is exactly the same machine that I am targeting. So it works on my A600,
Yeah,
to be
and I
honest.
need to pump up a bit the volume.
Yeah, even if the sound is not great because it's always the same, but I, let's say, hired a musician and he promised me to try to do something and stay in 4K, which I really doubt it will happen, but at least I want to give it a try. So here, what you can see, if compared to last stream, is just this spaceship, which is on hardware sprite. And these hardware sprites actually are two sprites side by side, and both sprites are, I don't know if it's the correct term,
What,
attached.
Ozzy?
Okay. So what I was saying, so you know that the Amiga has this capability of hardware sprites, and I'm taking advantage of it. And this spaceship is, I think it's 8 colors or something like that. So they are actually two different sprites, one for the left part and another for the right part, and both sprites are attached. That means I call it multicolor sprite because they are overlaid and they use, let's say, 4-bit planes, and these allow you to render up to 16 colors, so 15 plus the transparency color, which is not really a color, but that's how it works. So the problem is that it's a lot of data, because as you can imagine, I can't describe this spaceship using code, or at least I could, but it will be cumbersome. So what I did is using the usual ink bin directive on the assembler, and this loads into memory the data of the spaceship. Of course, Shrinkler will do his best in order to shrink the data as much as possible, but still, this is a lot of data, and I was going over the threshold of 4K. So I started to figure out what can I do in order to shrink, and this is all about this, let's say, episode of Amiga coding that I'm doing here. So I'm going just to talk about what I did to go back to the original size, but adding this sprite to the demo or to the intro, to the 4K.
Do you? I was going to show the font editor, your font editor, where you did your sprites. Is that okay?
I think it's on the slides, so
Okay,
we can start with the slides, and then we can show you.
Fair enough. Yeah. So.
Okay, so.
Shall I go to the slide?
Close. Yes, please.
Okay. There you go.
Okay, this is just the title. I don't know every time what to put in the title, so I just figure out trying to shrink more, because I'm shrinking all the time. So this is just talk about what I did in order to make the executable smaller. So please go to slide number 2.
Yeah.
And we will start with my first change.
Yeah, let's go to the next slide. There you go.
Sorry. So if you remember last time, I made a selection of good mod replayers routines. There are a lot of them throughout the internet. There is even one very good and works fine on the RamJam book. But I picked this LSP, which stands for Lightspeed Player, and I think it's from Leonard or his group. And I picked this one because the code size was very small. I think it was the smallest that I've ever seen, if compared to P61 or other players. It really fits all the checkboxes that I need. And so last time I just gave a brief overview on how you can use this mod replayer if you want to make your Winamp for Amiga, for example. And I discovered, I didn't notice this option, which is minus micro, which is circled in red. If you remember, this is the converter. So in order to play the mod, you have to first convert the mod to something that the LSP player can understand. And this task is accomplished by this LSP converter.exe, which is a Windows program. And so you see here I'm using through the command prompt of Windows. So it doesn't work on Linux, unfortunately. But the point is, on the top of the screen, you see that if you do the regular conversion without giving any arguments to the LSP player, it produces this score, which is the pattern of the mods. So the nodes, this succession of the nodes, and it takes 1118 bytes. If you add this minus micro option, you end up with a bigger score. Please notice the red arrow on the bottom of the screen, and you see that LSP score is now 1742 bytes. So at first I told myself how this can be any good. So it's not an improvement. We are wasting bytes. So this microcode, micro argument doesn't work. But if you read the documentation on the GitHub webpage, it says that yes, the LSP score will be bloated, but
Hello.
this is something that Shrinkler will like a lot. So in other words, the final executable will be bigger, and you will use more RAM in order to reproduce this song. But when you are at compression stage, so when Shrinkler is trying to find some occurrences of the same patterns in order to shrink the executable, it should digest a lot better if compared to the version without the micro argument. But anyway, so I was saying about this piece of software, LSP Player, which has this micro option, micro argument. And if you use it, you will lose byte. At least at first glance, this is what it looks like. But in reality, all this stuff is made for Shrinkler, because Shrinkler will be able to compress more even if the file is bigger, which is counterintuitive for me because it's really much bigger if you look at the size. But yeah, I can assure you that after the shrinking, I saved, I think, between 200 and 300 bytes. That's for a small score, for a small song like mine, is a lot, really. And these bytes are very useful because they allow me to push the sprite of the spaceship into the demo. Without this, I will be in trouble. Another thing that I want to say is that my first try with this micro version was not successful because the Amiga was reproducing the song at, it seems to me, some twice the speed. So this regular speed was increased by 2, like if it was executing the music at double speed. And I made my own research, and I spotted that inside the mod file there is a particular word which is called the tempo, and the replayer reads this particular word, and it sets up the reproduction of the mod according to this tempo. And I discovered that this LSP converter was putting a wrong value inside this word. So what I did, I got in touch through GitHub with Leonard, and I said, hey, please, can you please look at this, because I don't have the sources of lspconvert.exe, so I don't know what is going on. But for me, the conversion with this micro argument is not good. And he replied acknowledging the problem, and he fixed it promptly. Additionally, he also released the full source code of this lspconvert.exe, which is very cool for me, at least. If you want to know how to convert these mod files into something that is readable by LSP, now you can do it. The only problem is that he provided the sources, but the project is meant, I think, for Visual Studio Code. So probably you have to use Visual Studio Code in order to compile the whole project. If anyone here wants to take a look and maybe write a make file or something that is more for Linux, I will be very glad. Otherwise, I will try on my own in order to put this little tool in my tool chain when I build the whole demo. Right now, I'm just every time I have to fire up the VM and then put the mods inside the VM, launch this file, this LSP convert file, and then get the result and transfer back. So it's quite a mess. But yeah, I will try to port it to Linux in the future if anybody is, if I don't find anybody willing to do this. So that's it. So this is about LSP player. Please turn the page, and I don't remember what else I have to say about this task.
Yeah, there is more to say, I guess.
Well, yes. Okay. This is something that is changed between the no microcode version, because there are some example in the GitHub page in order how to launch the replayer, but there is no example on how to launch the micro player. So I'm just reporting here what you should do in order to make this work. At least this is what I understood reading the code. So the first two things, you have to include the Lightspeed Player micro.asm instead of the Lightspeed Player.asm. And this is a file provided by Leonard. It's on GitHub. And also, if you want to play the mod using CIA interrupts, like I do, you have also to include the Lightspeed Player underscore CIA.asm. And the only thing that you have to do inside this file, you have to replace this call, because into the GitHub page, there is no example for CIA file related to micro. So you have to switch manually the calls to the subroutine. So LSP music play tick subroutines calls will be replaced with LSP music play tick micro. So essentially, you have to add this micro word at the end of the function, and and it will work out of the box automatically. This is, I think, how is meant to be used this replayer. And another thing that I noticed is that there is a dog over my red line, but doesn't matter. I just want to tell, if you remember last time, I wanted something in order to understand which channel has been played. And in order to do this, I discovered that there was the value of the channel was a bit inside a data register. And the data register was D2, if I'm not mistaken. So for example, if bit 0 on D2 was set, it means that the sample on channel 0 was played. And if bit 1 was set, it's the same for number 1, for channel number 1. And in this micro player, things are slightly different. The data register is no more D2, but is D7. And also it's reversed for some reason. I don't know why. But so if bit 0 correspond to the last channel, to channel number 4, and bit 1 channel number 3, and so on. So this is a little change, but this is something to take into account when you are switching to the microplayer. If you do all this work, all this work, you will be rewarded with some extra bytes free to do something else. So it's very good and meant for size coding. And that's it. This is, I think, everything about I have to say about LSP player. Please turn the page, and I think we will go into sprite territory. Okay, this is something, a feature that FaZe requested me some time ago. I think it was end of last year, something like that, before Christmas, I think. So I am very slow, I know, but if I promise, I try to fulfill what I promise.
So first of all, let's us explain what it is, because let me go on the website. So Ozzy has got this what he calls font editor, but actually it's a page.
It's not.
With lots of tools related to the Amiga. Okay, so this is what we are talking about. So it's not a sprite editor or a bitmap editor. It's lots of tools on the same page that if you code for the Amiga, you will use them. So why? I mean, I use it a lot. His page, I use it a lot. His tools are good for what I do. Let's say that. And this is why I put requests for him.
Yeah, I don't remember if I told you in the past the story of this particular website. But the thing is, when I started to read the Ramjam book, I remember I was on chapter number 4, and chapter number 4 was about fonts. And in the book, they started to explain how you can print fonts. So, for example, words inside on your screen. So, let's say it's a technique that I sometimes use in order to fix the concept of my brain. I just try to do a little software, a program that it just reuses the same concept. So it started since I was on chapter number 4. I called it Amiga Font Editor because chapter number 4 was about the fonts, and the idea was I just use this HTML markup language, and there is a canvas object inside this language that allows you to draw squares. So I said to me, okay, I just draw a lot of square, and I pretend that every square is a pixel on the Amiga, and then I want my program to produce the assembly code as is reported in the book, the Ramjam book. In fact, if you, for example, try to click the Amiga colors code, you will see that the labels and all the semantics of what I print here is a copy and paste from the book. So I'm using even the same labels because I was learning, and yeah, that's the story. Then the next chapter was about sprites. So I just extended what I did with the sprites, and this is what you are seeing. And at the beginning, it was a very simple sprite editor. You click one square, and it will just produce you the code that you have to include in your project that corresponds to this sprite. Then I read about a touched sprite, and I added a little slider that lets you define how many color you want. And then at the end, I added the other feature. The last one was what I call side-by-side sprites, which are just, you know that the Amiga hardware has this limitation of 16 pixel sprites because that's how the Amiga works. The DMA fetches 2 bytes at a time. So I assume this is why each sprite is only 16 pixel. But you can combine multiple sprites and render on the screen one next to each other in order to have a bigger sprite. So you have 8 hardware sprites available. So it means you can multiply the 16 pixel width by 8. And this is what I did. In the top of the page, there is this slider which is called wrongly attached sprites. It means actually sprites next to each other, and you can go from 0 to 7 because 7 is the maximum allowed of additional sprites that you can print at the right of sprite 0. And I also added a new button, which is load the PNG sprite, which is on the top left of this page. And this allows you to load a PNG image and convert to Amiga sprite. That's the point. Now the button is disabled just because you didn't add sprites. So the attached sprite 0, the attached sprite slider is set to 0. If you set to 1, it should turn on. And then you can load a PNG image. Of course, the PNG image must be something that is readable by this program. For example, if you put 7 sprites, you have to provide an image which is 16 per 8 pixel wide. And then, of course, you can set bit planes, or 2 or 4. That's the point. And you can set the palette and whatsoever. And there is an example on my slide. So
Yeah.
if you go back to the slide, you can see how it works. Otherwise, I can give you some sample PNG. You can try on your own. Let me take a sip again. So this is my spaceship sprite. And as you can see, the width is 32 pixels. So the first 16 pixels are rendered into sprite 0 and the other into sprite 1. I think it's pretty intuitive what you are seeing here. So the PNG file was loaded and it's divided into 2 different sprites. And on the text area on the right, there is the correspondent sprite code. And in theory, you could just copy and paste this sprite to your Amiga code, and it should work if you set up the copper list correctly. So you have, of course, to point to your sprites. And after that, you should see the spaceship. Other thing that I did, I don't remember. No. Each sprite, you can load the PNG also for each sprite individually. So you see that there are 2 load PNG buttons. The one is within the sprite and the other is, let's say, global. When you use the global button, the content of the PNG will be spread throughout all your sprites. And if you use the load PNG button within the sprite box, it will just load the sprite and put it on the correspondent related box of sprite. And that's how it works. If you find it useful, please use it. It's free, of course. It's online.
I recommend it.
If you find some bugs, please report to me because I'm pretty sure there are many. But yeah, at least for me it worked. This is how I printed the the sprite on my demo. Uh, the artist just gave me the PNG file, and with GIMP I just copy and pasted here, nothing more, and I got the result. Of course, there are better tools out there. Sprite is one of them, even if it's a commercial program, but a simple GIMP or GIMP is enough, and I know that a lot of programmers have their own tools, but this is another, and this is tailored to my tastes, let's say, because I like to have this thing online because I switch computer a lot, and using a Chromebook, I find it very useful having this into a browser. But yes, that's it. So check it out.
Yeah,
And please,
I do recommend it, especially if you're a beginner. It has the tools that you think, oh, how I'm going to do this or do that, and normally it puts you in the right direction. Let's say that to start. Maybe then you will find other tools because we all have, as Ozzy said, we all have our own tools. So it's not just Ozzy's tools that I use, but I do use them. So yeah, it's a good to have, let's say, part of your arsenal, part of your weapons for when you are developing on the Amiga. That's how I see it. So next page, right?
yes, yes, please. Which should be also about
Yeah.
this sprite editor. So this is what you get if you select 7 attached sprite or 7 next to each other sprite. I don't know how to call it. And in this here, the spaceship image has been doubled twice. So this is in theory the maximum that you width that you can get using all the sprites. Of course, this is just theory because it's not possible because we have too many colors. So it's just theory. Maybe on AGA you have if you have more sprite on AGA, but I don't think so.
No.
You can
You.
do this. So this is
Uh,
just
Hold on. Uh, yeah, no, you are using too many sprites though. Still.
yeah, it will work if you use just 3 colors plus the transparency. If you
Mm-hmm.
do this, you in theory you could get this image into your Amiga, and it will be very cool to have such a big sprite. Because I remember when I was a child, I said
But
to myself, "Why the Amiga has this sprite? They are so little." And
but
when I went to
if
play
you
it in
don't
the
mind
arcades,
interrupting you, if you don't mind
yeah,
the what is good about this, how you did it, is that sometimes you need a number of sprites. Okay, so this is not to have 7 or 8 sprites on the screen, but sometimes you need to have a sequence of sprites. Let's say you're doing a 16 color sprite, so two, so you might have 4, but they are animated, so you can see them also next to each other, no, like this. So that's the also one of the things why it is good to have such a thing, right?
yeah, it is a possibility. But just keep in mind that these are too many colors for the Amiga because usually you should use only 3. So, but yes, that's the point. The problem that I have here is, that you don't have the control page, so you don't see the um, uh, the window which is holding the Amiga code that you should copy and paste. And this is because all these images taking too much pixel even on my desktop. So I added this show controls and hide controls button in order
uh,
to visualize and display the whole image. Because I wanted to do this window draggable, and I know that it's possible using CSS and JavaScript in order to say, please make this HTML object draggable, and so you can move it around in order to don't hide a part of your sprite. But I'm not able to do this. So what I did instead is I just added this show and hide controls button in order to see the whole image, and that's it. But yeah, the concept is the same. Just remember that this image in theory is not possible to
Yeah,
have on the
so
Amiga.
exactly, Dockster. This is not something that you can have on the Amiga, but this is to show the editor is able to show you if you have a sequence of sprites one next to the other. I mean, Ozzy maybe use the spaceship and is giving the not the wrong impression, but you start thinking, okay, why he's showing such an image when it has more uh, than three colors. But imagine you are designing something like I don't know, um, the big boss. Let's say is made of two sprites, which the two sprites are both of them 16 colors, so next to each other. So you have used four sprites basically. Uh, However, maybe you have another frame, so you see the other four uh, next to your animation, basically to the first one. So this is why it's not really he's not really showing it's not really showing 1 to 8 sprites there. Sorry, 1 to 8 pixels, one next to each other. But if he used three colors, then yes, it can be 1 to 8 pixels.
Yeah, the point is, since the Amiga supports up to 8 sprites, I want you to be able to play with each of them. But of course, keep in mind that in this image there are too many colors, so you have to adjust. And this is always not always true, because there are some exceptions. For example, if you are using the scrolling function of the Amiga, for example, you are stealing some DMA time, and in this particular case, the eighth sprite or the seventh, so the last sprite is not fetched from memory. And I remember this thing. I, I encountered this problem at the beginning of my journey of the Amiga, because I had this demo which was scrolling to the left and to the right, and the last sprite wasn't on screen. And then I discovered, just because there was no DMA slot available for this, because I changed DFF start. I think it was the name of the register, and DFF stop, and this caused the Amiga to fetch more data and stole DMA time somewhere, and this caused the 8 sprite not to be shown on the screen. But yeah, this is the project. Of course, as I said, this is my own tool. It's what I use. There are for sure better tools out there in order to draw sprite, but this is one. So if you like it, if you want to use it, I will be glad. So let's start with our last topic. Please turn the page.
Uh,
So speaking of Proton, I want just to share my experience with Proton Fig, which gave me some code in order to solve a problem that I had. And the problem was I was wasting too much space for my sign tables. And last time he told us there are some ways in order to create some sort of sign tables using code. So I could get rid of my sign tables and cosine tables, which was good, honestly. This is what I did. I just took the code that I had from Proton, and I saved the piece of memory where on the Amiga where Proton code was storing information. And what I noticed, it was the following: the whole sign table was 1024 words, and so this means that each quadrant was 256 words. And so the first, if you want to see the sign correspondent to the first quadrant, you have to read from address 0 to address 512. And the results are in Q8.8 format. This means that he's using, let's say, one byte in order to represent the decimal part of the sign table. So at address 0, you see that the first 2 bytes are 0. So sign of 0 is obviously 0. And then he starts with 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, and so on. And this is actually what is producing this code. And to be honest, it's not bad because it's very small. The only problem, which is not a problem, is that there is an approximation. So it's not really a sign function, but it seems to me a function which looks like a sign, because if you follow the flow, you see that it's at the beginning it's just adding a 2, and then, for example, if you go towards pi divided by 2, you get this fa, ff, and then 1 0 0, which is, I think, the sign of pi divided by 2. So 1. That's the point. So my comment on this work is good. This is very useful if you are doing size coding and if you don't need say the exact number. So because each entry is an approximation, and sometimes it's also quite big. So for example, I remember, please turn the page, and I did some random checking on these numbers in order to see how much.
Shall I turn the page?
Yes,
Yeah.
please.
Yeah.
Okay. So this is, for example, one entry of the table that I took by random. I needed to have the sign of 1 divided by 128. And if you use your calculator, you get this number, which is 0.0078 and blah, blah, blah. And the Proton routine, which I reported to the bottom of the image, just reports me 4. This means, I think, which Proton is trying to represent the number 2 elevated to -6, which is 0.015625. Of course, with my table, I was able to be more accurate because the table was produced by my Linux PC. So I have my tools. So in my case, the table reported 0.003906. So just to say that if you see the error using the lookup table, it's quite smaller because it's half, let's say, more or less. But this doesn't mean that the code that I had from Proton is bad, because at the end of the day, you didn't notice anything on my tunnel. And this is because actually I don't need all these decimal numbers to be so accurate in order to build something that looks like a tunnel. So at the end of the day, what I did is I replaced the lookup table with ProtonFig code. The final result was that I saved about 50 bytes. That's what I saved because I did a
In
lot in
4K,
order
that is a
to.
lot. In 4K, that is a lot, 50 bytes.
Yeah, it's a lot. I hoped more, but took into account that my original sign table was 128 entries and ProtonFig is giving me 256. So he's giving me much more data, even if this algorithm it's not really a sign. It's something that again it's close to a sign, but this error is something that in this case can be accepted. So I'm going to use his code. My only problem with this code right now is that it's not mine, and this is something that I have problems because even if it's a small snippet and I don't think it's copyrightable because really it's I think 20 or 20 instructions more or less, but still it's not mine. And yeah, I know that Proton won't sue me for this if I include this on my demo, but the problem is about code redistribution because I'm redistributing what Proton gave to me, which is I'm not really entitled to do this. Maybe I'm just paranoid, probably, but since I had a bad experience in the past because I was accused to have stolen a gradient, which is a succession of colors in the past,
Really?
because I saw in a demo a copper list, and this copper list said, wait this line and turn color 0 to purple. And then wait three scan lines, and the purple gets a little bit darker and darker and darker. So I reused the same concept on my demo. So I copied the copper list, I changed the weights according to my needs, but the colors were exactly the same. And the original author, let's say, discovered that I copied the colors. So I felt guilty, even if I don't think that you can copyright and claim that a gradient is yours, even if I don't know, really. This is legal stuff, to be honest, but I felt bad. So from this point of my life, I said, if I want to include some code or some pictures or some music from a third party, I want the consent. I want the original author to be aware that I'm going to redistribute his code under the GPL. And if he doesn't agree, I will just don't use it. That's
So,
my.
are you asking Proton if he is giving you that permission right now?
I will do it in private, but I will say, okay, Proton, thanks for your code. It's very good and I like it. I would like to include all my stuff, but keep in mind that you are disclosing your code to everyone because everything that I'm doing is open and it's under GPL too. If you don't agree with that, I will thank you again, but for your help because yes, I really love the fact that someone is sharing the code with me, and this is something that I really appreciate. But still, I it's not mine. It's code from Proton, and I will
Now I
credit him
realize.
on the.
Now I realize why you were asking me when I gave you the code that I modified from. uh, why you were? No, I never thought why you were asking me. I said, why is he being so so obsessed?
Yeah, I'm so picky just because I told you it was my first demo that I presented
Hey,
to
look
Flash
what Proton
Party.
told you. Cut the crap and just use it. So Proton, he did the same to me. I gave him some code, and I was wondering why he's asking me all these questions if he cannot use it, if he can. And now I know the story behind it.
Yeah, the all started because I copied a gradient. It was, let's say, 20 byte of colors, which went from purple to white or purple to black, I don't remember. And the original author just discovered that I copied the gradient. And I don't want this to happen again. I made a mistake in the past, and this time I want to get it right and do the right thing.
Well, I mean, you do right to ask. I mean, that I appreciate actually. But yeah, sometimes I mean, if you did not explain it, I mean, it's the first time I'm hearing this story. So for me, when I gave you the code, when it was in November last year, and you were telling me, can I use it? Can I put? I was, yeah. Well, what's the problem? You
Yeah,
didn't tell me the story, so yeah.
yeah. The problem is also that I sometimes I feel guilty if I use the code from the book in order to get rid of the OS because it's not mine. I'm just copying what was on the book. And for example, in this demo, the code in order to disable the OS is not copied by the book, but it's so similar. So it's something that it's so hard to make it different because you have to disable the multitasking, and there are
Yeah,
just one way. In order to point a copper list, you have the routine
yeah,
is
but
always
that
the
is.
same.
I mean, I do not know what type of coder he was that told you this, but I find it strange, just for a gradient.
Yeah, yeah, it was a gradient, and it could be generated by a tool because there are plenty of tool out there.
Exactly, exactly. There's so many tools that can do that. So, well,
Yeah,
okay.
and if but now I'm asking to myself if the tool is not mine, the code generated by the tool is copyrightable, and this is another very hard question that I don't know how to respond to that. But yes, this is well all started. And the fact that the original author discovered that I copied the gradient, it made me sick because he was right. I copied exactly the same colors, which are 24-bit colors. So
Oh
this
my
sequence
God.
of 24 bits were copied.
I cannot remember how many demos I saw with copper bars that has got the same color. I mean, I just yeah, whatever.
Yeah, yeah. I
There's
remember
so many like that.
back in the days, people who did that were called lamers because they steal not only one part of the code, but I think the whole project, and they just replace sprite data or text inside the executable, and then they
No,
say,
what
okay, this
I
is
think
mine.
what happened, that maybe Proton knows more about this. I think what happened, and this is my version because I lived those days, is that coders share their code. I mean, if you know, not they were not public domain, but if you have a friend, he will give you his code, and then it will be passed and passed. They helped each other. If you, for example, are in a demo party or something like that, and what they do is I mean, demo coders, they just want to have demos now, so you give them the code and they will just insert the code as it is in their demo, in the demo, and then they add their stuff to it. I mean, there are many demos like that you can see, you can notice routines in them, or parts of them that were probably taken from somewhere else, especially in the beginning, no. um so yeah, I think it's natural. um this is not like a game, I gave you a game and you copied the game. It's just a routine, let's say that. Of course,
Yeah,
there are
it's
coders that
not
keep.
piracy.
No, it's not. Yeah. So
The
yeah.
problem is not that I'm copying your product and making money out of it. The problem is I'm redistributing your code because you gave me the code
Mm-hmm,
and I'm using inside my stuff.
mm-hmm.
And let's say it's a different problem.
But
Uh,
anyway,
but but yes,
Anyway,
I
back in the
think
days also GPL did not exist. To be honest, let's say
yeah,
that
but
also.
yeah, back in the day it was different.
Yeah.
But today, yeah, really, I have to take care. I tried with Chat GPT. I asked a lot of time, please, Chat GPT, give me a M68 code assembler that
Nah.
generates a sign function, and this says, yes, sure, here you are, and it doesn't even
Yeah.
assemble.
Yeah. It's no. When it comes to such things, forget it. ChatGPT. Come on.
Yeah, it's not the best way. It's useful in other areas. For example, he is able to explain exactly math formulas, but for assembler
Yeah.
code for the Amiga is a disaster. But
Yeah.
yeah,
It's
a
what it
pain.
is. I mean, you,
Okay, so turn the page so we can finish this talk.
yeah. There it is. Last one.
Yeah, this is a memory comparison. On the left, it's my original sign table. On the left is the one which now I use thanks to Proton. And my assumption here is that at the beginning, the Proton algorithm increases a lot. You see that it starts from zero and then one, two, three, four. So my feeling is that it grows much faster when you are near zero, where pi is zero, and then when it approaches pi divided by 2, it it slows down and a lot, maybe too much, until he reports this. You see at line 16 and 17 there is this series of
Mm-hmm. Got it.
2000, which I think it's
Uh huh.
one. It's
Yeah.
just representing the sign at 90 degrees. So it's just telling me that there is this series of one. Of course, if you approach this 90 degrees, you are very near to to one. Instead, my table just reports one at a very specific location. So my feeling is, if you do a byte by byte comparison, the values are very similar. So this is something that the viewer doesn't notice on my tunnel. But yes, I just want you to be aware that if you use this approach, you again, there is some error that you are inserting because the Amiga doesn't have really a method to calculate this sine. And so sine, square roots, tangents are all a pain in the ass on the Amiga, unless you have an
Mm-hmm.
FPU at your available on your machine. But yes, as I said, it works for me, and I will stay with Proton Fig code. Additionally, Proton also sent me some other code if you want that generates sine and cosine. So, but my approach was to use, let's say, just one table, and from this table I just build all my sine tables that I need, because on my demo I use two different sine tables, and they are at this point they are derived by ProtonFig. So ProtonFig just gives me the real sine value, and then I do all my stuff based on his value.
Yeah.
So it works,
Yeah.
and it will stay here.
Yeah. I just Proton said, yeah, back in the days at 80s, people were too proud. Always you must have to get credited, otherwise you were a stealer. So yeah, that I remember. Yeah, it's good point. You always have to credit the people, yes. But that is, to be honest, even today, you should credit somebody. I mean, I mean, me myself, when I do something and I say let's say, took the idea from somebody, even if it's different code, but the idea is from theirs, I will still say this is based on someone else's code, because I think it's fair to say that. Um, yeah, I believe in crediting anyone that helps you. So yeah, it's but I have to say that back in the 80s, uh, the protection on the code was quite high compared to what it is today. There is still some today, but back in those days, it was it was something. It was so bad that I mean groups fought with each other. No, you could see in the scrolls, if you read the scrolls, one offending the other about lamer or things like that. So yeah.
I think the info files that are usually embedded in the zip file of the production are meant for this. You can greet people, you can credit people, and also put
Yeah.
some ashy art if you want. But yeah, usually people get their credit with these info files.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Of course, because it's not always possible to give credit. It depends what the issue is, but they add the info file to say, hey, this is credits for this person, this and this. No, so yes, agree.
Yeah.
Um,
So so
Protonfix
yeah,
said, for my eyes, looks like these sinuses have different amplitude, almost the same but not same. So
yeah, because as I said, my I just take his main function and then I rework my
ah
sinus table according to my needs. Because in order to speed up computation while I'm rendering the tunnel, I need different sine tables with different amplitude and different features. And so what I do is first I generate the base table with ProtonFig code, and then I read this what was generated and generate other sine tables with different features. One of them is amplitude, yes, because I don't want to make extra calculation while I'm drawing, rendering the the tunnel. It's just optimization.
sure.
That's the point. So that's it for today. I hope you
Hmm.
you liked what I did,
Okay.
and yeah, I will continue with my tunnel, and I think it will come to an end very soon. I will start another project. I don't know, still don't know what. I got some offers, some suggestion from friends, and but nothing is, let's say, decided yet.
So, guys, uh, first of all, let's thank Ozzy for being here. Thank you very much, Ozzy, for being here and for
You're welcome.
showing us what you have, had, let's say, done, because you always give us a recap of what you have done. Um, so, guys, thank you very much. Again, I thank Ozzy, and yeah, we will continue with the Ozzy series, let's say, of what he presents to us in next week. I hope you enjoyed the stream and have a great week, guys. And I always look forward to Friday. Okay, that's one of my things. I mean, Friday I always stream in Italian after my work, and I really look for that stream. Because I completely forget work because of that stream. So, guys, thank you very much. Have a good night, and see you in my next stream. Cheers. Bye bye.
Good night, everyone.